Raw, uncut, and unapologetic. Welcome to Men Talking Mindfulness with your hosts John McCaskill and Will Schneider. Here we focus on helping men and those with men in their lives solve some of life's complex challenges through understanding the practices of mindfulness and how they can help. Each episode is in an environment free of judgment and criticism, with a focus on authenticity and inner peace. Let's dig in.
John and I are so grateful you're all here. Thank you for tuning in to the Men Talking Mindfulness podcast. I'm Will Schneider, one of your hosts, with my brother from another mother over there in Colorado Springs, my co-host and great friend, John McCaskill. Today, we are joined by Aaron Hale, and a truly extraordinary man with an incredibly inspiring story about what it takes to overcome adversity. Check this guy out. Aaron Hale started his military career as a chief in the U.S. Navy.
A chef.
What's that?
Chef.
A chef. Fuck. When I say, okay, chef. Yes. Okay. I'll start again, right? Aaron Hale, you just started as a chief. That's amazing, Aaron. Just kidding. All right. Aaron Hale started his military career as a chef in the U.S. Navy, which, according to John, is one of the few jobs you just do not mess with in the Navy unless you want your food messed with. Later, Aaron wanted to be in a more active role, and he joined the Army to be an EOD technician. It was during this role that he was permanently blinded by an IED while on deployment in Afghanistan. A few years later, as a civilian, Aaron lost 100% of his hearing due to a bacterial meningitis infection. Most people would have tapped out by then, but not Aaron. He has become a ultra endurance athlete, competing in the Badwater 135. He's a motivational speaker, husband, father of three, founder of the EOD Fudge, EOD in this case standing for extraordinary delights, and he's also a podcaster. I feel I have given away enough about Aaron's incredibly inspiring story, so we are honored to have this incredible man joining us today. Before we dive into Aaron's story, I just want to say hello to John and thank Aaron for joining our podcast today. John, great to see you. Aaron, we are honored to have you here with us today. Thank you.
Well, thanks for that introduction. John, thank you very much for both of you for inviting me on.
Yeah, it's going to be a blast. We really look forward to this conversation. And before we get into that, I just got a couple of announcements. For our audience, thank you for supporting our show and for buying our merch. We have those shirts, hats, coffee mugs, tumblers, and more. If you want to check that out, check out mentalkingmindfulness.com/shop. And then, hey, we've got our next retreat set up. It's going to be May 16th through the 19th out here in Colorado Springs at the beautiful Glen Erie Castle. So save the date, May 16th through the 19th. Registration opens next week. And then lastly, subscribe to our social media channels. We're on TikTok, we're on IG, we're on YouTube, all the things. Or as my little boy says, because he can't quite pronounce the TH sound yet, all the stings. So join us on all the stings. All right. So one more thing before we get into our questions with Aaron, as you might know from joining us on the show before, we'd like to start the show with a mindfulness practice, and then we'd like to wrap up the show with a mindfulness practice. The opening practice is just as much for our audience as it is for us, or just as much for us as it is for our audience, just to get us centered and ready for the conversation. So that said, if you're listening live or if you're watching, hey, take a breath and let's get comfortable and do a few breaths together. Begin by exhaling, holding empty at the bottom. Nice deep breath in, all the way, hold at the top, and relax. Emptying all the way out, and holding empty at the bottom. Deep breath in, noticing the sensation of that breath in, hold at the top, and relax. Holding empty, and one more deep breath in, starting from the belly, into the chest, hold at the top, and relax. All right. And now start to bring some movement back in your bodies, maybe rolling your shoulders, your fingers, moving your neck around a little bit. And now let's get in this conversation with Aaron. And before we hit record here, Will and I were just going through all the technological advancements that make this even possible for Aaron. As we said in the beginning, he is 100% blind, 100% deaf, yet he can hear us through technology, Bluetooth that is wired in through a magnet and an implant. I mean, it's incredible what he's got going on there. So, Aaron, thanks for being here with us today, and it's so great to have you. Let's start off with this. Let's get a little bit more background into who Aaron Hale is, the foundation of who you are, like maybe from your childhood through your joining the Navy originally, and then how that came to your joining the Army, and then take us up to the point where you encountered that IED that changed your life.
Absolutely. Again, thanks guys for having me on. I love the show, and being a foodie, I love the contrast. Navy SEAL and yoga instructor. It's like the sweet and the salty. Who's the salt?
It says salty on my shirt.
All right. What is sweet and salty equals savory, right?
Right. I love it.
So I grew up. I call myself the all-American slacker. I had enough natural ability, talent, and BS to get by without having to do a whole lot of hard work, right? A whole lot of effort. And of course, when I got to college, that plan blew up. So after wasting tuition, I realized that I needed to get some ambition, goals, work ethic, all those internal intrinsic values. I needed to set my life on the right course. So I also needed to get that tuition money back if I was going to have an education. So I joined the Navy, and at that time, because I love to cook, I've been cooking since I could reach over the counter. I wanted to be a chef. I was going to go to culinary school, and I would use the GI Bill to do it. And I just always was fascinated with the Navy, touring around the world, seeing foreign countries, because I love to travel, and of course, cuisine. So I figured if I was going to go to school to be a chef after the military, might as well join as a cook. Nice. So I joined as a mess management specialist. Of course, they changed that to culinary specialist because the mess management specialist was just too much. It was a mouthful.
Sure.
Especially when you add it to the rest of the full Navy titles, which can fill a page. Petty officer, second class, enlisted surface warfare qualified.
Right.
But I really very quickly learned to love being in uniform, being in the Navy service. I got all of those values that I was looking for, and I was growing internally as a person, as an individual. But I accidentally picked up all those external values, like the teamwork and the self-service, leadership, and dedication to the mission and duty. I mean, I love being in service. I love being at sea. I was stationed in Italy for 4 years.
Wow.
And I was at Naples, Capodichino, and Gaeta. But for my second duty station, I was assigned as a personal chef to the commander of the 6th Fleet, 3-star admiral. And hardship duty, it was not. But I joined in 99. And just a few short years later, of course, we're in two different wars. And even though I was in the military, and I was watching the war. I was watching Iraq and Afghanistan happen through the television, and because I gained and grown as a person, as a sailor, as a service member, I knew that I could play a deeper, better role. My skills, my abilities, my talents could be put to better use. And I volunteered to become a individual augmentee for my first duties. For my first deployment, I was still Navy cook, but I was now cooking in a chow hall in Afghanistan. So I went from the admiral and his top staff, maybe 35, 40 total, to 400 or 500 ISAF NATO troops. And it was Portuguese, Spanish, Americans, Canadians, whomever came through the base. And just so happens we were over by Herat, where the Italian headquarters was, and we had 2 platoons of Italian Special Forces right on the base with us. I got to practice my Italian that I learned. Got to cook, bring them into my kitchen and cook with them. It was pretty funny getting to speak Italian in Afghanistan. That's when I met some EOD techs. And I was instantly hooked. I mean, these guys were doing like maintenance checks one day and had all their gear out of their truck dumped out. It was like a cool guy garage sale. And had bomb suits and robots and all these other things. And I just struck up a conversation with them and learned about their first responder duty on the battlefield. They run into the danger when everybody else is running out. And they're the ones that suit up in that bomb suit and make that long walk. And it's a technically difficult job. And the tight-knit brotherhood. And John, I know you don't know what it means. It's like fraternity inside the brotherhood. And everything about it said, this is what I need to do. But of course, I guess the Navy liked my cooking too much, because when I would put in my chit to go from cook to EOD tech, that was denied. This was still 2007, and EOD wasn't a rate at the time; it was a special qualification, and I wasn't. They were CS, culinary specialist, was not a source rate, like a job they pull from. So everything can be wavered. Nobody wants to tell you. So when my deployment was up, my contract was actually coming to an end, and I just decided that I wanted to be an EOD tech more than I wanted to stay a sailor. So I went over to the Army recruiter. And I brought my service record. I got to keep my rank, so I went from petty officer to sergeant. And I just changed uniforms. And I went to school as an EOD tech. After that, I was sent to Fort Drum. And very quickly after that, we deployed to Iraq. That was in 2010. And then 2011, I'd made it to the status of team leader. So I was running my own team, and then the team leader is the guy that actually gets in the suit and walks down on an item. So I went back to Afghanistan in 2011, and about 8 months into a 12-month rotation, there was an IED that had my name on it.
And how did
go ahead, sorry.
Walk us through that piece, like as you're walking up on that IED, what happens, and then what happens in the moment, and then what happens afterwards. How are you feeling through all that as well, physically and emotionally? I mean, I know that's a lot to unpack, but if you could walk us through that.
Well, it was literally one of those things. I wasn't supposed to be here today type of things.
All right.
It wasn't my AO, my area of operation. I was just on the road at the right time. Actually, I'd just gotten back from my 2 weeks of R&R, 2 weeks of leave back in the United States. And it was just about this time of the year I got to see my firstborn turn 1. I got to witness the whole family gather together for Thanksgiving dinner. And I love Thanksgiving for 2 reasons. One, because you get to gather everybody you love together, and the rest of the family, and talk about what you're most grateful for in this world. And you get to eat like a glutton. You have an excuse. But I had just gotten back into Kandahar. My team picked me up from the airfield. We jumped into a convoy back out to our little command outpost. And I tossed my bag in the back over in top of the robot, and we headed back. And on the way, convoy commander called back and said, EOD, there's an ID on the side of the road. Could you take a look? Well, we're not QRF. We're really not on duty, but it's war. It's battlefield, and we're the closest. And you don't just say, "Not my job." I'm not on duty, right? Let QRF suit up and come on out, and you guys can wait for an hour. But so I said, of course. And they set up the security cordon. I tossed the bag off the robot out of the truck, and it found what we'd been always finding for 8 months straight, was just one of those oil jugs, vegetable oil jugs, with a 9-volt battery, a plywood pressure plate, and some cord to connect it all. The robot took it apart, but it couldn't get the jug out of the hard packed earth, and I wanted to get the evidence so we could send it up for evidence. And so it jumped out. I made it about 20 or 30 meters from the original item on a secondary device that hadn't been found yet. Detonated. That punted me into the air. I landed on my knees and elbows. I was still conscious, but the lights had gone out. In fact,
no, I just said, wow. Sorry about that, Aaron.
The lights had gone out, but I was awake. I don't know how lucid I was. But the first thing I did was the function check, wiggle the fingers, toes, the other extremities, and check on everything. And it seemed everything was more or less in place. So I thought that my helmet had just gotten pushed over my face. Mm-hmm. And so I reached up to grab my helmet, and it was gone. And it had been blasted right off of my head. And so that's when I thought, oh man, this is bad. My first sergeant's going to kill me for losing that.
Oh wow!
I'm sure that was the least of his concerns.
Yeah.
My team came and grabbed me, dragged me back to a safe area. Medevac chopper. The airfield was just down a few miles away still. So the medevac chopper was there in like 14 minutes. And 48 hours, I was at Walter Reed, and doctors were telling me that the blast had cracked my skull. I was leaking spinal fluid right out of my sinuses, right out my nose. Both my eardrums had been perforated and blown out, but I still had some hearing, relatively decent hearing. But it had taken one eye completely, and the other one had a piece of frag gash right across it, and it couldn't be saved. So I was sitting in the hospital bed, coming to grips with being in total darkness for the rest of my life.
Wow. Yeah. Can you walk us a little bit deeper down that path? Like I'm thinking of like almost, it's like the dark night of the soul. Like, so what was it like to come to grips that you're going to be blind? Like, I can only imagine what that's like. I'd love to hear your experience and our audience too.
Well, it was kind of chaotic at first. At least for me, especially since a major source of information had just been cut off. We get so much of our information from eyesight, right? And even my hearing was limited. So at that time, and there was doctors and nurses coming and going, and tests and surgeries, and my parents and the rest of my family came, and it's right on the Beltway, so there's all these dignitaries and service organizations. Everybody wants to come in and give the greetings and all that kind of well wishes, and I didn't really have much time to process, except in the middle of the night, because I also realized that I learned that with 100% blindness, you get the added bonus gift of a sleep disorder.
Sure.
Because you can't recycle, you can't reset your circadian rhythm, that internal clock with sunlight.
Oh, shit. Yeah, wow. I never even thought about that.
Yeah, so, it's kind of like having a 26-hour clock where every once in a while you're really out of whack. So I was there for over a decade now. Sometimes I'm wide awake in the middle of the night. It feels like the middle of the day, and vice versa. I'm just as I would be during the day. But I was there at the hospital, lying in bed, wide awake, at like 3 a.m, and trying to think of like all those like I call them my demons, that voice in the back of your head of doubt and fear, and anger. I was so pissed off. I was pissed off the whole world, the Army, the convoy I was on, the commander, of course the Taliban, my commanders, the president. I was mad at everybody, but I was mostly mad at myself. I was so mad at myself. We trained so hard. Why did I do it like I did? We have all the tools at our disposal. We're the greatest fighting force in the world, and we're the EOD. And it was such low tech. It was caveman stuff. I did this every day. And it got me. But those other thoughts, like, now that I did this to myself, I failed. So now I have to live as a blind person. I can't be a soldier anymore. I can't be an EOD tech. I can't be a husband or a father. I can't. I can't.
Right. And what was the moment where like a light went on that said you can, if there was, or what was that moment, if you can go back?
Well, for one, I've got an incredible family. My mom is an eternal optimist, and our family's been through tragedy before. My younger brother, who's 6 years younger than me, had a terrible roadside construction accident. And he was working inside the barrels on a freeway, and he's been permanently injured, brain damage, all of that. And my mom helped bring my brother back to life. And she comes into my room at Walter Reed. She's like, "Hey, honey," just home, sunshine. And first thing I thought was, I am so sorry, Mom, that I did this to your other son. And she said, oh, honey, not my first rodeo. And she set the tone. And everybody else gathered around me. I actually had a friend. Unfortunately, I had a friend in the unit with me. Sergeant Kyle Vickers was another team leader in my company who had been injured just 2 weeks before me. And he came well on in. And it was so funny because he's a hilarious dude. Great personality. But, EOD Techs, Special Forces guys, they're always playing tricks and stuff. And, it's that camaraderie. He comes wheeling in because he'd lost he'd lost a foot. He comes wheeling in and he goes, hey, Hale, dude, give me your hand. Feel this. I'm like, what?
Oh, no.
Yeah, where's this going? But he puts it under his own chin. He puts it under his own chin. He goes, feel that. And it's 2 weeks of growth. There's a bunch of EOD, Marine EOD techs here. When they have this liaison guy, as soon as they come out of ICU, he asks them how they're feeling. If they say fine, he hands them a razor and tells them to get back at regs. The Army doesn't have a liaison. It's driving them crazy. You got to grow your beard out. I couldn't help it. I didn't want to laugh. I didn't feel like laughing, but I had to.
Right.
So I had this support. And you know what? It was just a little catalyst moments. And then I started thinking less about myself. I was thinking about me. And I started thinking about my mom. I started thinking about Kyle. I started thinking about all those warriors that were facing their own battles up and down those halls. They were in their own personal fights. I don't have a monopoly on pain. And when I stopped thinking about me and started thinking about them and how they were fighting, who was I to quit? Who was I about to say I have a good enough excuse to give up? I don't. So I decided if I was gonna be blind for the rest of my life, I was gonna be the best damn blind Aaron Hale I could be.
Wow.
And I decided I was gonna get to work. I was gonna learn how to do it. And I stopped saying I can't and started asking, how can I? And stopped saying, why did this happen to me? And I started asking, why is this happening for me? What can I learn from experience?
Man, that's one of the I've always loved that saying, and I think it's one of the more powerful reframes that we can use to look at something that has happened in our life. Not why did it happen to me, but why did it happen for me? Now, I imagine your physical rehab after that was fairly intense. What did that look like, and how did you stay motivated through it?
The rehab was a lot different for me than others. Walter Reed isn't really equipped for blindness. So once they had me stabilized, right, healthy enough, just missing some eyeballs. Once they took care of the blast, the burns and scars and stuff like that, they didn't have anything more for me. I went to the spinal cord brain injury center at the VA hospital in Tampa Bay, and their neuropsych doctor did a test on me to see do the brain functioning, and a lot of it is visually based. But he asked me as many questions as he possibly could, and he said, it came back a couple of days later. He goes, "You scored a 96th percentile for general knowledge, 96th percentile for shoot, what was it? Now I'm going to forget. And and a 99th percentile for memory. And he said, I'm pretty sure I can get you out of here the next couple of days. I said, wait a second, I can do better. This is the EOD competition in me. Like 96, I can do it. I can do better. Let me get it. But after that, they sent me to Augusta and the VA hospital there, where they have one of the, I think it's 14 blind rehabilitation centers around the country. So I went to blind school and I started learning how to use the cane, the voiceover, accessible computers and phones and that kind of stuff, basic daily living skills. You wouldn't believe how frustrating it is to just pair your socks if you don't know the trick. Cooking and grooming stuff. So that took about 5-6 months. And that was, while that was going on, it started the med board. And they asked me where I wanted to retire. And I still had a bit of a chip on my shoulder. And I'd learned about soldiers like Captain Scott Smiley, Ivan Castro. These guys were blind and still active duty. And I said, and when they asked me where I want to retire, I said, I don't want to. Obviously, you can't even be colorblind and do an active EOD role. So I wouldn't be getting in a bomb suit again anytime soon. But I told them, send me to the schoolhouse. I'll instruct. And that's what I did.
Wow. And then where along the line did you get the meningitis and lose your hearing? Because, I mean, you're losing your vision and your eyes quite literally.
Yeah.
That's a tough transition in and of itself. But where along the line did you lose your hearing?
Well, the bomb blast, the blindness happened in 2011.
Right.
And by 2012, I was out of the hospital, more or less. There's still some treatments. A couple of the treatments were, one was it's called an encephalocele. You take a piece of the septum and patch the crack in my skull. And apparently it wasn't completely patched. So for 4 years, I was making a pretty good go of this blindness thing. I was instructing for the first year and a half or so, and then I didn't have anything more to prove, mostly to myself. I could do it, but I was too close. I was still too close. I couldn't really fully move on while still being at the schoolhouse. So I decided to take my retirement. I was also speaking across the country. I was whitewater kayaking, climbing mountains. I joined it was a wounded veteran team of a 19,000 foot summit in the Peruvian Andes. I was running marathons, and I thought I was doing okay as a blind person. Then summer of 2015, I was just talking to my girlfriend, brand new relationship, and over the phone, and I was feeling very fatigued, tired, and very dizzy. It was super strange. It was like vertigo, where all of a sudden I had that feeling of when you're trying to balance on the back two legs of a chair and you're not quite sure if you're going forward or backwards. And I was just waiting for the earth to come up and hit me in one part of my head. But And then it would pass, and I'm still standing. I'm like, oh man, maybe I should lay down. And it's lay down for a nap. And I woke up to the most excruciating pain. It was like migraine doesn't do it justice. And
Wow.
I had to call 911. It was that bad. It's kind of funny. When the operator asked what the urgency was, I said, I have a pretty bad headache. And to her credit, she said, on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad is the pain? And I said, ma'am, I've never felt a pain like this in my life, and I've literally been blown up before. So she said, the ambulance is on its way.
Wow.
I laid back down, and next thing I know, it's like 4 days later. I hadn't been lucid. The meningitis had really done a number on me. It was trying to kill me from my brain out. And in the process, during the fight with the bacteria, it stole what was left of my hearing. The blast hadn't taken. It also, with the hearing loss, it also had its own bonus gift of taking my vestibular balance, that inner ear balance.
Oh shit!
So I came home in a wheelchair. Thank goodness for those handicap railings on the in
the bathroom,
in the hospital, because I would have fallen right off the toilet.
Yeah.
So I came home, and I was in the middle of the night. I was dreaming of falling, and I would leap out of bed. So I mean, again, there I was, knocked to the mat. And maybe it's that sardonic kind of humor of mine, but I was just imagining the last 4 years of me speaking and talking to people about success because of struggle and triumph through tragedy, not despite it, right? And there was some, the mighty, fate, God, whatever you want to call it, was saying, oh yeah, put your money where your mouth is, do it again. And me thinking, jerk. But I mean, you remember the time during, it wasn't that long ago, COVID, it seems like forever ago. And everybody was isolated. Everybody was quarantined. It was talking about how frustrating it was. And I was going through that period thinking, this is nothing.
Oh, I'm sure.
Can you imagine not being able to see anything or hear anything whatsoever? Not even the crunch of a nacho chip in like that jawbone conduction. Was completely silent. It's extremely lonely and very frustrating.
But then, Aaron, how do you go on with these impediments? I mean, you're blind, you can't hear. How do you go on to, run Badwaters and finish a 135-mile race, which is like the most intense ultra marathon in the world? I mean, you said whitewater rafting, which blows my mind. And like, how do you, do you need a lot of help with this, or, is someone running with you? Is someone kayak next to you? Or are they, are you just piggybacking with them? Like, how do you go on to, accomplish these incredible feats?
Everything after going blind became a team sport. And that was one of the additional components of my resilience was the social aspect. And this is true for everyone. We're social creatures. We have to be around people. We need that, confirmation of meaning, of connection with others, and that our lives have significance, and we need others to grant significance, right? if we have nobody to be significant for, and is our life is significant? And so we can achieve, but I believe the highest order of achievement is that contribution to the rest of the world. And one added, it's two sides of a coin. I was embarrassed to ask for help, but people also need to do help. They want to help because they feel good.
Sure.
And I started running with for all these things, mountain climbing, for kayaking, with skiing, which is hilarious, and running. It all use guides. We all find these ways to make it accessible, and for running as a guide, the sighted guide, they'll just run side by side with me. We use a little tether, a little piece of nylon, like a backpack strap. I've got one that's just 2 loops, and I, get about 3 fingers in one loop. My guide has the other loop, and we run side by side. And I get all the cues I need from that little tether. Wherever that goes, I go, and we could talk if we want. But I've run with somebody for hours in total silence and been totally content. And the same with kayaking, somebody would be in another boat ahead of me and just be shouting out commands, right, on me, and I would follow the sound. Left paddle, right paddle, back paddle, stop. And
Aaron, if I may, 1 sec, the tremendous amount of courage that it must take to, so running is one thing. You can stop, feel the earth underneath you, right? Or something else, but to go down like whitewater rapids, right? That you're at the mercy of the water. The courage, what's that inner game, if you will?
And
what happens in that space? Yeah. And trust, can you just dive into courage and trust with being blind, not being able to hear, and then doing extraordinary things?
Right now, I'm imagining the pucker factor when I could hear the rapids approaching, right? But it's a team thing. Again, I had to trust in my guides. If you think about it, skiing down a mountain, climbing up one, you're going over crevasses on a glacier, running on a road without looking where you're going. You really have to have a lot of trust in your team. And that's one of the things that, of course, definitely the military training. I had to trust my team with my life. And and then it comes with practice. I was about 80 miles into Badwater. I'd already run out of Death Valley over one mountain range, and I was on this. It's like the crucible of Badwater. It's called Father Crawley, and it's this 4,000-foot climb, and it's only 80 miles into the 135-mile race. And it's these switchbacks on this road. And also, by the way, 2 days before even starting the race, we had to come up with an entirely new method for guidance because we couldn't run side by side. It had to be single file the whole way. So we're using a brand new method. We're running in 125-degree heat, up 4,000 feet on these switchbacks after 80 miles already. And what was that? It was like a day and a half already. And also these switchbacks, as you turn the corner, they do that race tracking thing where it tilts in. So it only had about a foot and a half between the white line and dirt, right? And either way, one, I'll trip and roll. The other way, I'm going to like meet the grill of an oncoming Jeep, right? So imagine not being able to see. And I had to trust my team, and I was so exhausted. And I'll tell you, I've developed now the willpower. I will run until the bottoms of my feet come off, and I will run until my veins pump blood, battery acid. But I was terrified because my balance. The more fatigued I get, the less balance I have. So running a flat, straight line, no big deal. But those components there, the gravity was trying to pull me into the road. And I didn't have my guide by my side where I could just like grab his elbow or something. It was all on my own. And I was so terrified at it was when those voices came back in my head. You're not good enough. This is too hard. This is too much. You can't handle this. And I needed to ask my team. I had to stop, and I said, "This is what I'm going through right now. I can pump my legs up and down, but I cannot control where they land." And it scares the heck out of me. And that's a rare feeling for me nowadays. I like fear. I like to face into it. Fear is just it's like a warning for discomfort most of the time, and that just means that it's an opportunity for growth and learning. Here, it was my fear was telling me it was an opportunity for being squished, and that's when my crew, my team, my coach, my guides, they all came together. We huddled up, and they reminded me that I wasn't alone. I wasn't alone. And part of their job isn't just to keep me hydrated and keep me with, full of calories, keep me cool and point me in the right direction. They were there for my safety. And so I can feel the fear, but I have to trust in who I've selected as the people of my circle. And then, of course, I gotta have a great circle.
Indeed. And then when you stopped and you told them that, how did that feel to you, like admitting that you were having an additional challenge, right? Yes, they know you're deaf. Yes, they know you're blind. But now you're admitting that you have a fear. How did that feel to you to admit that you were scared as a man, as a former EOD technician? Like, how did that feel?
Well, I mean, it's one of the most, was one of the most difficult things of that whole race, was to be able to say, I'm scared. The physical part, your standard marathon, 26.2, the joke is after 20 miles, you're halfway there.
Right.
And the meaning being that the first 20 miles is the physical part. The other half is the mental part. Mm-hmm. You go through that numerous times in an ultra. And that's why I do it. That's why a lot of us do it. So we can test ourselves. Mm-hmm. And, most of the time when that voice comes into my head and says, you can't do this, you're not strong enough, you haven't prepared, all those things, I take a moment and breathe and I smile and say, there you are.
Nice.
I've been waiting for you.
I love that.
Wow. Yeah. I'm wondering, Aaron, like if you can give us maybe some tips or advice as like, what it really takes to develop trust. Like it just in such a deep state of trust you must be in. Like, are there like steps or things you need to do in particular to really establish that trust, feel that trust, give that trust, receive that trust?
For anything, it comes with, there's a great book, The Like Switch.
The Like Switch. Got it.
And is just about gaining trust with somebody. It was actually, I think, an FBI and it was like a spy recruiter or something. But it comes with proximity. It comes with repetition and intensity, right? So the more you're around somebody, the closer you are, proximity, right? And of course, whatever the activity you're doing, the intensity of it. So one of my guides, Dave, is a friend, is also a retired Army Ranger, and he and I run weekly. So he knows me. He knows my running styles. He knows my abilities. And I know his. My coach was my crew leader for the race, and she's been coaching me for, I think, 9 years now. And she actually picked the other two crew members, one of which invented trail toes. And the other one had just a few months earlier completed Marathon des Sables, which is one of the other races that claims to be the world's toughest foot race. And it's across the Sahara, Morocco. So these people know what they're doing. And when I stopped and we did a huddle and I said, I fear for my safety, they also said, everybody goes through that, right?
Oh, wow.
This is, we're here. That's why you have a crew, right? So I had to remember that I was part of a team, and that they helped me put my mind back in that mindset, back in perspective. I reframe the situation because I was just thinking about me again. And it wasn't me getting up that mountain. It was we.
Just kind of switching gears from the endurance sports and the trust piece, you've talked about it wasn't me, it was we. And you've talked about the value of having your friends, your coaches, your mother around. It seems as though, community is a big piece of your healing process, but also storytelling. And you are a motivational speaker. How has storytelling or sharing your story affected you personally? And what do you think is the importance of storytelling in anyone's healing process, recovery, whether that's from a physical injury, a mental injury, emotional injury?
Of course. It did me it did me a lot of good to tell my story. It helped me put words to the feelings and the experiences, and also, so it was cathartic in just letting it out and sharing with others, and also connecting with others. But again, it was that service thing that was also fulfilling. It's funny how so many things that stick in my head, I probably read from a meme somewhere, but there was this statement, I don't know where it came from, but it said, someday the story of your struggle might be the blueprint for someone else's survival.
Oh, man.
So with that in my mind, I want to tell a story, whatever platform I can, to as many people as I can, because it might be what somebody else needs to hear. Just like the experience of my crew, what they had to say in that moment, I needed to hear it. So yeah, we do. We in difficult times, we tend to isolate ourselves, and that's the worst thing you can do. In times of fear or anger, we're thinking about ourselves. When we connect with others, it makes the hardship, easier. Easier to carry that burden, lighter. And if I can tell my story, lighten somebody else's burden by connecting with them, sharing how, I might not have all the answers. I definitely don't. But maybe a little bit of perspective will help them on the right path, light their way.
Beautiful.
Yeah, indeed. Where do you want to go next, John? We have stuff here about future aspirations. Like, I definitely want to, have him address our audience, about maybe struggles they're having. So I'll let you go next.
Yeah. Let's talk about, for you personally, what are your future aspirations? What are you currently working on? What are the goals, the next hard thing that you're working on?
The new EOD.
Well, I love telling the story and travel around telling that. So I want to continue doing that. Did start a fudge company, which was an interesting challenge. Actually, we didn't talk about that, but
yeah, we're going to get there.
That was born out of culinary therapy, right? Just like so I love food, and I knew I could cook. So again, it was like a Thanksgiving miracle. I started cooking, and I was doing it for others, but it was a way to take my mind off of what was going on at the time, and that turned into a business.
And that's EOD Fudge, right? Or EOD Extraordinary Fudge.
Extraordinary Delights, or EODFudge.com.
Oh, that's what. Oh, right on. All right. I'm ordering some of that right after this, man. I'm a huge
We
fudge
also
fan.
have some really, really badass aprons.
I love it. A badass apron.
I use an apron. I do every time I cook.
But we, speaking of the COVID thing, we actually started a TikTok. So when we had nothing better to do, right? We did a daily cooking show called Aaron Hale's Cooking Without Looking. Of course,
done. Well
great.
When real life started back up, we didn't have a whole lot of time to produce whole cooking shows. So we do maybe one a week now. But my wife became a real estate agent. We started investing in real estate, so got this whole growing portfolio. So I love connecting with lenders and agents and dealers and brokers, everybody, and just hunting for the next deal. And that's a challenge and a joy on its own. And my coach just asked me if I wanted to go run that Marathon des Sables, which is like a 5-day stage race in Morocco, next April.
What did you say?
I haven't answered her yet.
Man,
wow. No, that sounds hot.
Incredible.
That sounds hot, and you got to get your team on board to make that happen. Like it's a we function.
Why would I want to go to Morocco? I got a garage in Florida.
There you go.
All right, and then let's see. I'm glad you talked about the culinary piece, because that was one of my questions as far as how did that get reignited, and how was that culinary experience part of your therapy? So I'm glad you went there. I've got one more question, kind of as a closing question. I don't know if you got anything else before I ask that, Will.
I do, yeah. Well, I mean, I guess I mean, I think it's so important for our audience to hear, so if there's someone out there that's struggling, with self-doubt or, negative self-talk and, keeps, reaffirming, I can't. And they can see, they can hear, they can walk, they're fully functioning. Like, what would you say to someone like that that's going through those struggles right now?
Of course, I guess the big theme of today's talk was about connecting with others.
Right.
When I was trying to figure out how to do this blind thing, I was not blazing any new trails. I'm not the first blind guy to go kayaking or blind guy to climb a mountain. As soon as I could learn how to use the internet, like my phone and all that, I was doing internet searches for blind plus this, blind plus that, and a few names kept popping up. Like Eric Weinmayer is the first blind person to climb Mount Everest, and he organized the wounded veteran trip to Peru. So I sought him out, and I went mountain climbing with him. Lonnie Bedwell, another Navy guy, is the first blind person to kayak the entire Grand Canyon.
Jeez.
So I sought him out. I went kayaking with him. And I'm not doing anything. Ivan Castro is Army Ranger. I was on a phone call with him, and it's 100% blind. And he said, I had the conversation in 2014, right? And he said, I make it a point every year to run the Air Force Marathon, the Army 10 miler, and the Marine Corps Marathon. And I thought, that's really cool. That's patriotic. I think I'll do that too. So I signed up. So I registered for those 3 races. And then I got talked into a local race. So did register for the Pensacola Marathon. And then somebody reached out from a nonprofit or something and said, what if we paid all your way, your travel and everything to come run the San Antonio Marathon for us? I'm like, sure, why not? So I was registered for 4 marathons and the Army 10 miler within the span of 4 months. And I'd never run anything longer than a 10K in my life.
Wow.
That's nuts, man. Wow. You are an
inspiration.
Sorry, that was
it's just, I mean, just no, it's, I mean, if I may, it's like getting out of your way, getting out of your head, connecting to other people. Like, that's really the secret sauce for so much of this, to remind us that we're human beings. We're all having a human experience. We're all struggling or suffering in some way, but that doesn't mean it has to crush us. And we connect, like you're mentioning, to other people, develop that trust, like you had mentioned as well, that we just become more extraordinary than we are. Like our light can, our candle, our torch can burn so much brighter when we have someone else with us. So thanks for sharing this. This is, it's so incredible, Aaron.
Yeah.
Plus, I'm apparently very suggestible.
Yeah. All those races.
When I kayak whitewater, sure.
I get it, man. I get that. Well, Aaron, I want to thank you for coming on here. I want to thank you for sharing what you've shared. I want to thank you for inspiring so many in, our audience today, but in everything else that you do regularly. And I also want to thank you for your service, from one service member to another. And then for our audience who's listening, I know this is going to be aired tomorrow, which is November 8th, and we've got Veterans Day coming up. We want to, give a shout out to our veterans who are, we owe our freedom and our rights and so much else to those who have served. So thank you for your service, Aaron, and thank you for your service to those who are veterans out there who are listening. That said, I'm going to turn it over to Will to kind of wrap it up with maybe any closing questions and then a closing practice before we say goodbye.
Well, I'm the one who should be thanking you guys because you're both are veterans. I'm not. So I want to say thank you to both of you and to all the veterans that are listening out there and everyone that served our country. Thank you for keeping the freedom. And I don't really have anything else. for Aaron, I thank you so much for sharing this incredible, inspiring message and story. And, you really can, if you surround yourself by the right people, put yourself in the right mindset, get out of your own way, like you truly can overcome and adapt to anything. And it's great to hear that. A message from someone that, you could be packing it in and playing the victim forever, being blind, being deaf, but you have continually triumphed. And I'm excited to see, and maybe we'll have you back in a few years to see, what you're up to next, because you seem like you just don't stop. And it's such an inspiration to have someone like you speak with us today, and also connect with us, and our audience to hear from such an incredibly inspirational person. So thank you, Aaron. Any closing comments from you, Aaron?
Yeah, well, thank you, gentlemen, for having me on, and John, for your service, and both of you for putting out such incredible content. I'm a fan as well, so I really do love the show. And in light of Veterans Day coming up, I actually I'm flying out to Texas to join Band of Runners, veterans organization, the running organization, speaking and running with them. So
nice.
And by the way, when it said, like I'm always, when you mentioned about me being in motion, it's when I slow down, I start to feel the wheels come off. So, like a SR-71 that's sitting on the tarmac just making fluid, not in any way like a SR-71, except that if I stop moving, things start falling apart. But thank you, gentlemen, for having me on and allowing me to share my story.
Right on, Aaron. It's been a pleasure and an honor. And I just got to tell you a little funny story about the SR-71 and running. Funny enough, I ran track and cross country in high school. And my coach, who was a fantastic runner and inspired us all to do better, his dad used to work on the SR-71 Blackbird. So funny connection there between the SR-71 and running, and funny you should mention that. But hey, Will, you want to take us home with that final closing practice, brother?
Yeah, let's just take a few parachute breaths, everybody. We're just going to do 3 of these. It's a nice kind of swift, big inhale and a very long, exaggerated exhale. And let's just jump right in. Maybe close the eyes if you like. And exhale out. Really get empty. Hit the bottom. Feel that emptiness and take that first inhale. And then very slowly out. Easy, easy. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Great. 2 more. In. Exhale. Feel yourself melting, surrendering, kind of grounding and centering a little bit deeper. And then 1 more. In. And gently let it go. But just take just a couple seconds here and just notice if that's changed anything in your experience. Like, that's why we do this breathing, and that's why we plug it into the show, so you can have a reference point of like, oh yeah, breathing really does make a difference to my mind and how I'm feeling and what I'm doing. And thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank the both, John, love you. Aaron, my God, big fan. I mean, thank you for everything you're doing and putting everything in the world that you're and continually inspiring more and more people. And I think that's it, guys.
Yeah. Aaron, when can we expect a book? Do you already have one out?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. What could you plug?
Do you have a book out?
I do not have a book.
Oh,
I've
man.
got a podcast and I've got a website.
Right on, man. Well, I'll tell you what, if you ever write that book, I'm going to be one of the first to purchase it, because I am inspired by your story, and I know I'm one of many, many. So keep doing what you're doing, brother. Thanks again for being here on the show. And for our listeners.
Well, what's the website? What's the website?
Oh, yeah,
what's the
TikTok?
TikTok?
What's the website?
What's the website? Yeah, that's okay. That's why we have each other, John. We trust, right? So what's the website? What's the TikTok there, Aaron?
I didn't think you were going to leave me hanging.
No way. No. John would. I always cover his ass, just like he covers my ass. Right? We got you, Aaron.
That's right.
The website, of course, eodfudge.com. Order early and order often for the holidays. And you can catch me on my show, Point of Impact.
There you go.
On all the major platforms.
For sure, man. And Will and I are going to be on there sometime soon. So we look forward to another conversation with you.
Yeah, exactly.
Soon, Aaron. So thanks again. And we'll make sure those are in the show notes for our listeners to follow you there on the EOD Fudge and your podcast. And we'll also make sure that your TikTok is shared as well. So we want to, what is it? Aaron Cooking Without Looking, something to that effect. So we'll check that out, man. So thanks again, brother. And for our listeners, if you got something out of this show, which I know you did, share it far, share it wide, follow us on all the different social media platforms and help to grow the show. Not just because Will and I want to be influencers, not at all. We want to get men talking mindfulness out there because of the message that we share, and guests like Aaron and the messages that they share. Get those messages out there. So thank you all for tuning in, and thank you for helping to grow the show. Until next time, take care. Peace.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you walk away with some new tools and insights to guide you on your life journey. New episodes are being published every week, so please join us again for some meaningful discussion. For more information, please check out mentalkingmindfulness.com.